Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now another week and another free games giveaway on the Epic Store, this time until June the 2nd at 4 PM BST or the equivalent in your time zone. We have Bioshock the Collection, so we've got Bioshock 1 Remastered, 2 Remastered and Bioshock Infinite, the complete edition, for free on the Epic Games Store. Now as you know, I like to inform you of these free game giveaways, especially when they're games like this that will run on a wide range of hardware. We looked at Bioshock Infinite not too long ago and found that it could be made to run on, well, absolutely anything if you're willing to turn the settings right down. So what I thought I'd do today would be to benchmark these three titles on different hardware just to see how these games perform, because if you haven't played them before, well, they're worth picking up, and if you have played them before, again, they're still worth getting and downloading, especially for the low price of free. So let's get into it, run some benchmarks and talk about how these games run on a couple of different pieces of hardware. Bioshock Remastered doesn't have much in terms of a graphical options menu, though we can choose to enable anti-aliasing, set the field of view, anisotropic filtering level, real-time reflections, etc. Everything that could be enabled was here, so I'll just call this the highest settings. Even with our first test system, the mid-range i3-12300 and RTX 3050, we were seeing ridiculous performance metrics. These figures will vary level by level, but at no point will you be needing to turn anything down, and after combining the average from the first couple of hours of gameplay, the on-screen numbers are what we got. Over 300 FPS on average with solid 1 and 0.1% lows here. You might notice the odd little stutter or frame dip during combat. I noticed one instance where that happened, but aside from that I couldn't really have asked for much more. We'll stick with this system as we test the two other games first, and then switch it out for something far more entry level. I'll give you a clue. It's not an Athlon 2999G. More on that later. Bioshock 2 Remastered offers a similar, fairly limited graphical menu to the first game, which isn't necessarily a problem, especially when the game, like the first, runs so well. There were a few more, albeit very minor performance hiccups during my first couple of hours of play, but nothing problematic. I'm wondering if the water ripple and real-time reflection settings cause this, as it's where I noticed the biggest frame rate dips, especially considering the early underwater scenes that I played through, which still look fantastic by the way, even to this day. I really can't complain too much because the average frame rate was still over 300 FPS with this setup, so if you've got a CPU and GPU combo more powerful than mine, you shouldn't hesitate to download this trio of games, especially at the current non-existent cost. I should also mention that just like the first game, the percentile lows were also very solid as well. A bit lower this time around, but that's to be expected of course, going from game to game. In Bioshock Infinite we get a more advanced graphical menu, though we can leave this at preset level if we wish. With the i3 and 3050 combo, once again I went with the highest settings or the Ultra preset. Jumping into the game, and just like the first two games before it, Infinite runs very well. It is the worst performer out of all three, which is to be expected, but it is by no means a poor performer, with over 200 FPS reported on average during my first 2 hours of gameplay. This is newer than the other two games of course, so I expected the frame rate and 1% low to not be as high, but if you have a system like mine or you have better specs than this, you need not worry about the performance, and it's nice to see such a brilliant trilogy of games running so well on modest modern PC hardware. Now then, it's time for the Athlon 3000G to make its move. 2 cores, 4 threads and integrated graphics should handle this trilogy just fine, at least that's what I'm hoping, and it'll be interesting to see if we can maintain the visual quality settings and just drop the resolution in order to hit playable performance figures. The first in the series, Bioshock 1 Remastered, ran with over 100 FPS, which was very surprising. You might be wondering if increasing the resolution would be a good idea then. Well, when I did that, I noticed a lot more frame drops below 60, which is fine if you're happy with that, but me, personally, in first-person shooters, I always try to target a 60 FPS plus average. While that might still be the case at 900 or 1080p, the frame drops felt a lot more intense, and the experience wasn't as consistent. It's all about personal preference though with PC gaming, and considering the game is free this week, you might as well claim it anyway, just to see how it runs on your PC. Bioshock 2 Remastered also offered decent average frame rates, but this time the percentile lows did suffer a bit more. There were more noticeable dips. Even so, for the most part the game was definitely playable, especially when you consider the hardware we're using. The beauty of Bioshock, all the games in the series in fact, is that you can even turn the resolution down as low as 640 by 480. That goes for the newest entry, Infinite, as well. Therefore, if you've got a PC that's weaker than the one I'm using today, then you've got even less to worry about given the wide range of resolution options. I love it when games have a 480p option. Fewer titles include this these days, of course, but some do still offer this super low res choice. Moving on to Bioshock Infinite then, my personal favourite in the series, and we still don't get to make use, or don't need to make use I should say, of the lowest res offering. We don't need the lowest graphical preset either. We're using low here instead of very low. As expected, we saw the lowest average frame rate out of all three games here, but we still hit at least 60 FPS. The 1% figure was respectable as well, and even the following 0.1% figure wasn't too bad. All three games are very well optimised, but I think the age of the games works in our favour too, especially when using integrated graphics and dual-core processors. In this case, it's a mix of both. The Bioshock Collection is free right now on the Epic Games Store, unless you're watching this after the 2nd of June. I'd strongly recommend claiming these games if you haven't played them before, but they're always worth a second or third playthrough as well. And they will all run on potato PCs, which is even better news. Thank you very much for watching then. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Let me know what you think of the games below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.